Kevin Feige fired Jonathan Majors on December 18, 2023, immediately after his guilty verdict, forcing Marvel to scrap their entire Kang-centered storyline. But here's what nobody's talking about. Trade analysis of Disney UK filings shows Eternals lost between $61 and $118 million. She-Hulk became the first Marvel show to miss Nielsen's streaming top 10. And multiple A-tier sources suggest at least 7 more Phase 4 characters are getting quietly benched after Secret Wars. So, which hero do you think has the worst chance of surviving Marvel's upcoming soft reset? Let me separate the on-the-record cuts from the likely casualties in the pure rumor mill, because there's a massive difference between official studio moves and fan panic on Reddit. Education and entertainment only, not insider advice. Here's how I'm labeling everything. On the record means official Marvel posts, trailer footage, or A-tier trades like Variety and Deadline with named sources. Likely means multiple reputable outlets are reporting the same thing from different angles. Rumor means single-source scoops or anonymous chatter that could be complete nonsense. Everything I'm covering happens in the main MCU timeline after Secret Wars wraps the multiverse saga. No variants, no what-if scenarios. Just the core characters you've been following since 2021 potentially getting written out of canon. Before we dive into the rankings, let's look at the 5 dangling post-credits threads most vulnerable to getting pruned. Hercules from Thor: Love and Thunder, status unknown. 10 Rings beacon from Shang-Chi, unresolved. Clea warning about incursions in Doctor Strange 2, deferred. Celestial Tiamat still in the Indian Ocean, ignored. Venom symbiote fragment from No Way Home, abandoned. These loose ends reveal Marvel's new pruning strategy perfectly. Starting at number 10, we've got Pip the Troll, voiced by Patton Oswalt, in Eternals post-credits scene. This one's likely getting cut because Pip exists purely to serve Starfox's storyline. And if Harry Styles isn't coming back as Star Fox, which Kevin Feige's July 2025, some characters maybe we'll never see again, comment strongly suggests, then why keep his sidekick around? The budget hit is minimal since it's just voice work, but there's zero narrative reason to continue this thread without the main character. Pip represents everything wrong with Marvel's current post-credit strategy, setting up characters they have no concrete plans to pay off. Number 9 brings us to the Celestials as active threats, and this is likely getting benched despite their cosmic importance. These space gods were supposed to reshape the entire MCU, but Eternals performed so poorly that Marvel can't justify the massive CGI budget needed to bring them back as main antagonists. Inference based on slate patterns and the pivot toward X-Men and Fantastic Four, the Celestials will probably get handled with throwaway dialogue rather than dedicated screen time. Tiamut's body is still canonically in the Indian Ocean, but don't expect a whole movie about cosmic judgment. Expect a news Chiron in the background of a future film. You won't believe this part, but number 8 is Harry Styles as Star Fox himself. The pop star's November 2021 Eternals cameo generated massive headlines, but trade analysis suggests Marvel has no active development for the character. Feige's diplomatic non-answer about Harry's return translates to, "We're not paying A-list musician money for a character tied to our biggest financial underperformance." The Eternals connection makes this even more toxic from a business perspective. Number 7 is Dane Whitman, the Black Knight, played by Kit Harington. This one's likely getting pruned, and it's honestly tragic, because the setup was perfect. The Eternals post-credits scene revealed his connection to the Ebony Blade, teasing this supernatural storyline that could have been incredible. But Kit confirmed in March 2024 interviews with Entertainment Weekly that nothing's in the works at the moment. 4 years of radio silence after a major post-credits tease is unprecedented in MCU history. Every previous post-credits scene from Iron Man through Endgame got paid off eventually, but Phase 4 broke that promise. The cleaner version would have introduced Black Knight through Doctor Strange or Blade instead of tying him to Eternals. That connection is now impossible to salvage without acknowledging the movie that lost Marvel over $60 million. Number 6 brings us to Shang-Chi's sequel status, and this is where rumor meets concerning reality. Simu Liu keeps insisting the sequel is definitely happening, But multiple trade reports from early 2025 suggest the project has stalled in development. The original made $432 million worldwide on a $200 million budget, which should guarantee a sequel. But here's the on-the-books part. The untitled 2027 Marvel movie was removed from Disney's schedule in September 2025. Multiple sources speculated this was either Doctor Strange 3 or Shang-Chi 2. Inference based on slate compression patterns, Marvel is prioritizing Avengers movies and X-Men integration over standalone sequels for mid-tier characters, even when the characters themselves are popular. Here's what's really happening behind the scenes that nobody's connecting. Marvel's entire post-Secret Wars strategy is built around three pillars: the X-Men as their #1 priority according to insider reports, the Fantastic Four as the cosmic anchor, and Doctor Doom as the new Thanos-level threat. Everything else is getting evaluated through that lens. Trade analysis from Variety and The Hollywood Reporter suggests Marvel is implementing what insiders call a performance-based retention system. Characters need to prove either box office viability, streaming success, or clear narrative necessity to survive the reset. It's brutal, but it's also smart business after the financial underperformance of Phase 4. The X-Men integration alone requires massive slate real estate. You're talking about introducing Wolverine, Storm, Cyclops, Jean Grey, Professor X, and Magneto as major players, not just cameos. That's at least 2 solo movies and multiple team-up appearances before you even get to the ensemble X-Men film. Then you've got the Fantastic Four, who need their own trilogy to establish Reed Richards as the new Tony Stark-level genius, plus cosmic storylines with Silver Surfer and Galactus. The math is simple. Every slot dedicated to a She-Hulk Season 2 or an Eternal sequel is a slot that can't go to mutant or cosmic content. But here's the twist that changes everything. The characters getting cut aren't necessarily bad characters or bad performances. Tatiana Maslany was fantastic as She-Hulk. Kit Harington would have been great as Black Knight. The issue is strategic focus, not creative failure. Marvel learned a harsh lesson from Phase 4. You can't be everything to everyone. The multiverse saga tried to juggle street-level heroes, cosmic threats, supernatural elements, and sci-fi concepts all at once. Audiences got confused, critics got overwhelmed, and box office performance became inconsistent. The soft reset after Secret Wars is Marvel's chance to return to the focused storytelling that made the Infinity Saga work. Iron Man, Thor, and Captain America each had clear lanes that eventually converged. The new approach will likely give X-Men the street-to-global lane, Fantastic Four the cosmic lane, and Doctor Doom the overarching threat that ties everything together. This explains why even successful characters like Shang-Chi are at risk. It's not about his individual performance, it's about whether his storyline fits the new 3-pillar structure. The 10 Rings could easily be folded into street-level X-Men stories, but does Shang-Chi himself have a clear role in the mutant-focused future? The financial reality makes these decisions even starker. Disney's streaming strategy has shifted dramatically since 2021. The company is prioritizing profitability over subscriber growth, which means expensive shows like She-Hulk that don't drive significant viewership are getting axed regardless of critical reception. Bob Iger's July 2025 earnings call emphasized quality over quantity across all Disney properties. For Marvel, that translates to fewer projects with bigger budgets and clearer audience appeal. A She-Hulk Season 2 might cost $40 million for modest streaming numbers, while that same budget could fund significant X-Men development. The international box office factor is huge too. X-Men and Fantastic Four have global recognition that characters like Eternals or Moon Knight simply don't match. China, Marvel's second biggest market, has shown much stronger interest in mutant stories than supernatural or cosmic content. Now here's where it gets really interesting, and this is the part that most YouTube channels won't tell you because they're too focused on the drama instead of the business reality. Marvel's pruning strategy isn't random. It's following a very specific pattern that reveals their actual priorities for the next decade. Every character getting cut falls into one of 4 categories: financial disasters, development hell projects, streaming underperformers, or narrative dead ends. The financial disasters are obvious. Eternals lost over $60 million. The Marvels lost even more, and Quantumania barely broke even despite introducing the saga's main villain. These aren't just disappointing numbers, they're career-ending disasters for studio executives. But here's what's fascinating. Marvel isn't just cutting the failures. They're also cutting characters who performed okay but don't fit the new strategic vision. Moon Knight had decent streaming numbers, and Oscar Isaac delivered a phenomenal performance. But where does a supernatural vigilante with multiple personalities fit into a universe focused on mutants and cosmic threats? The development hell category is equally revealing. Blade has been in production for 6 years, with nothing to show for it except director departures and script rewrites. At some point, you have to ask whether the project is cursed or whether Marvel simply doesn't know how to make it work within their current framework. The streaming underperformers tell a different story about Disney's changing priorities. She-Hulk, Ms. Marvel, and even Moon Knight drew significantly lower viewership than Netflix's Marvel shows used to generate. Disney Plus has over 100 million subscribers, but these shows couldn't crack Nielsen's top 10 in their premiere weeks. That's not just disappointing. It's a fundamental failure of the streaming strategy that Disney bet billions on. The company thought Marvel content would automatically drive subscriber growth and engagement, but the data shows audiences are much more selective than executives assumed. The narrative dead ends might be the most telling category of all. Characters like Black Knight and Hercules were set up in post-credits scenes with no clear plan for payoff. That suggests Marvel's famous 10-year plan isn't as detailed as they claim, and they're making up storylines as they go. But here's the counterintuitive part that changes how you should think about these cuts. Some of the characters getting benched might actually benefit from the break. She-Hulk could return in 5 years as part of a Fantastic Four movie, where her legal expertise and superhuman strength serve a specific story function, rather than carrying an expensive solo show. The X-Men integration creates opportunities for characters who seemed doomed. Shang-Chi's martial arts expertise could make him a perfect mentor for younger mutants, giving him a clear role in the new universe structure. The Ten Rings organization could become a major threat that requires both X-Men and Avengers to handle. Even some Eternals characters could find new life in cosmic storylines. Cersei's matter manipulation powers would be incredibly useful in a Galactus storyline, and Ikaris could work as a cosmic-level threat that the Fantastic Four need to handle. The key is integrating them into stories that actually need their specific abilities. The international market considerations are driving more decisions than most fans realize. China represents nearly 20% of global box office revenue, and their preferences heavily influence which characters get prioritized. Mutant stories have always performed well internationally, while supernatural and mystical content often gets censored or performs poorly overseas. That's why Doctor Strange's sequel underperformed internationally despite strong domestic numbers. And it's why Blade keeps getting delayed. Marvel needs global hits to justify their massive budgets, and characters who can't deliver international appeal are inherently vulnerable. The merchandising factor is equally important, but rarely discussed. X-Men and Fantastic Four characters have decades of toy, clothing, and collectible sales data showing their commercial viability. Characters like Eternals or Moon Knight are essentially starting from zero in terms of merchandise appeal, making them harder to justify from a total revenue perspective. Before we move on, let me ask you something crucial. If you could save just one character from this list so far, which one would actually improve the MCU's storytelling going forward? Number 5 is She-Hulk's solo future, and this one's likely dead, despite Tatiana Maslany's fantastic performance. The numbers don't lie. She-Hulk became the first Marvel Disney Plus show to fail Nielsen's top 10 streaming charts, premiering to 1.5 million households compared to Moon Knight's 1.8 million, according to Samba TV data from August 2022. Multiple industry reports indicate the series has been quietly canceled, with expensive CGI costs cited as a major factor. Marvel spent a fortune making Jennifer Walters look convincing, and the viewership didn't justify the investment. But here's the twist. She-Hulk could still appear in team-up projects. The character isn't being erased from continuity, just her days of carrying solo content. That's actually a smart compromise that keeps Tatiana in the MCU without the massive budget commitment. Number 4 gets us into genuine heartbreak territory. Blade's solo movie. This situation is likely heading for indefinite postponement, and it's not Mahershala Ali's fault. The project was officially announced at San Diego Comic-Con in July 2019. We're now looking at a potential 2028 release, which would be 9 years from announcement to screen. That's longer than the entire Infinity Saga took to complete. The movie has lost directors Bassam Tariq in September 2022 and Yann Damage in June 2024, cycled through multiple writers, and had its July 2027 slot removed from Marvel's schedule. Trade analysis suggests Marvel can't figure out how to make an R-rated vampire hunter fit their family-friendly universe. Let me pause here for a quick recap of what we've covered so far. Pip the Troll, Celestials as active threats, Harry Styles' Starfox, Black Knight, Shang-Chi sequel uncertainty, She-Hulk's solo future, and Blade's development hell, all showing multiple prune signals based on financial performance, streaming data, or development issues. Now here's where the numbers change everything for number 3. The Eternals as a team are likely getting benched, and the financial reality is brutal. The movie cost $272 million to make, according to Disney UK filings, and grossed $402 million worldwide. When you factor in marketing costs and theater splits, trade analysis of Disney UK filings documented losses between $61 and $118 million. That makes Eternals one of the biggest financial underperformances in MCU history. The movie also became the first MCU film to receive a Rotten Tomatoes score at 47%, destroying goodwill with critics and casual audiences. Kevin Feige stated no current plans for a 2 in multiple 2024 interviews with Entertainment Weekly and The Hollywood Reporter. Some reports suggest the sequel isn't completely canceled, but transformed into another project, which likely means individual characters might appear in cosmic storylines without carrying their own movie. The cleaner version would integrate surviving Eternals into Guardians or Thor films, where their powers make sense and budget requirements are manageable. But it gets worse with number 2. The Council of Kangs is officially dead as a storyline concept, representing the most dramatic narrative course correction in MCU history. Jonathan Majors was officially fired December 18, 2023 by Variety, immediately following his guilty verdict. Marvel didn't wait, didn't try to recast, they pulled the plug on the entire Multiverse War storyline. The Council of Kang setup from Quantumania's post-credits scene has been likely abandoned based on the strategic pivot. Years of planning and billions in projected storylines just vanished overnight. This isn't about losing one actor. It's about scrapping the entire Phase 5 and 6 foundation. And the number 1 character on Feige's chopping block is Kang the Conqueror himself, along with He Who Remains. Both are official exits as the main antagonist, but they're getting replaced rather than just written out. Multiple A-tier sources from July 2024 reported that Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, was renamed Avengers Doomsday. Likely but unverified reports suggest Robert Downey Jr. is returning as Dr. Doom, with multiple sources indicating his deal is significantly more than $80 million, showing how expensive this pivot became. This is unprecedented. Marvel has recast characters before. Don Cheadle replaced Terrence Howard. Mark Ruffalo replaced Edward Norton. But they've never completely abandoned a major storyline because of casting issues. Every Kang variant, every timeline threat, every setup from Loki and Quantumania has to be retconned or ignored. That's not just cutting a character, that's rewriting the entire multiverse mythology that was supposed to anchor the next decade. The silver lining is that Dr. Doom is a better villain anyway. RDJ's potential return as Victor Von Doom gives Marvel a chance to course correct from a Kang storyline that wasn't really connecting with audiences even before the Majors situation. What's solid right now based on A-tier receipts? Majors fired December 18, 2023, documented by Variety. Eternals financial underperformance documented by trade analysis of Disney UK filings. She-Hulk streaming underperformance verified by Nielsen data via Samba TV. Kang Dynasty title change made official at Marvel's Hall H presentation. The hidden truth is that this pivot proves Marvel's long-term planning isn't as locked in as they pretend. If they can scrap their main villain and replace him with someone completely different, what does that say about every other character on this list? So here's what we know for certain. Kang is gone as the main antagonist and getting replaced, the Eternals are financially toxic and getting benched, and She-Hulk's solo future is dead, despite great performances. Those three cuts will reshape the MCU more than any other Phase 4 casualties. The question now is whether Marvel learned the right lessons from these failures, or if they'll repeat the same mistakes with different characters. Which theory are you betting on? That Marvel will do a complete soft reboot after Secret Wars, or that they'll try to salvage some storylines and smaller team-up roles? Next, I'll map out exactly how Marvel could fix each of these character problems, and which ones are actually worth saving. If you want that breakdown, type Part 2 in the comments, and let's figure out the smartest path forward for the MCU.